Round 6 of the all-wheel drive Britpart Safari Championship headed south to Ilfracombe. With the recent hot weather, conditions looked set to be dry and dusty, a real test for both drivers and machines. Leading the way after the opening 2 runs were Rob Bull and Ginny Hyatt. Their morning wasn't without drama though, a brush with a tree stump and a clipped course marker, meaning an early penalty. But their pace, well, it was still good enough to hold top spot. Ginny making her debut in the navigator's seat, stepping in for Rob's regular co-driver Philippa Tennant, who, as you'll see shortly, was out competing herself. Ryan Dunn will be suffering with that recurring limp mode issue back on the car, having to pull over on run 2 and restart the thing to get it going again, losing around 20 seconds in the process. Apart from that, things were going okay. Mum Core in the car for the morning's runs. They were finding the course tricky to start with in the woods, the open sections where they could make some time back. Making a welcome return to the championship, Alex Holford had some Liam navigating for the first time. They quickly found their rhythm, sitting in an impressive 3rd overall by the end of the morning's runs. In 4th, James and Philippa Tennant were keeping their eyes firmly on the championship battle. With the title fight finally balanced, every second counted, and their consistency so far had kept them right in contention. Rob Scone makes a return this weekend as well, despite limited seat time recently. He showed strong pace to round out the top 5 after 2 runs. And Paddy Barker was having a pretty good run on the course so far. The dust kicking up, the times looking good. He lies in 6th place for now, looking good for some more points towards that championship campaign. Dave and Lindsay Bakewell come here off the back of a good result last time out in Minehead, where they finished 3rd. This time, starting a little slower out of the blocks, but soon picking up the pace again and ending the morning's first 2 runs in 7th overall. Brian and Mitchell Birch were needing to spend the first couple of runs getting used to judging the speed on the downhill sections. They may not seem that tricky, but they can cause you a lot of problems if you hit the compressions too fast. For now, the pair were lying in 8th overall, leading the way in Class 7. 9th place at this stage will be Alan Kirkland. Things all going to plan so far, sitting inside the top 10 at this stage. And rounding out that top 10 will be Toby Cox and Tim Tennant. They needed a good event this weekend to put the bad luck behind them, suffering mechanical issues at Walters Arena earlier in the year. They were driving for a finish this weekend and things, for now, were going to plan. Just outside the top 10 overall, it will be 11th place for Cy Badge, just 9 seconds back from Cox and lying 2nd in Class 7 as well. And for Bruce Mallet, it was 12th overall. But that, sadly, wouldn't last. We lose him on the next run of the event. The gap back to Paul and Tracy Johnson was a little bigger than we'd seen so far, but they were, of course, going to gain a position on that leaderboard regardless, with the loss of Mallet on the next run. They still lead the way in Class 4 as well. For Joshua Munn and Lauren Carpenter, it will be 14th place to end the morning. Only 10 seconds behind Johnson up ahead, the battle very much on. They were also leading the way in Class 6. Liam Hallett, meanwhile, was not having a good day, suffering with overheating issues throughout the morning. Not ideal by any stretch of the imagination. It was holding him back a little as well, ending the morning in 15th overall and extremely frustrated. 16th position at this stage was Brandon Barnwell. And with just himself in Class 3 this weekend, it was a battle against the clock. He was, of course, leading his way in the class. Second place in Class 6 from 17th on the overall leaderboard will belong to Alex Roussel this morning. but there would still be a handful of time either side of him on the results. And just behind Russell in the class and overall positions was Mark Gregory, ending the morning 18th overall. In Class 7, it was a third place for Margaret and Mike Bakewell at this stage, the pair lying in 19th on that overall leaderboard. A puncture on the first run of the day would set the tone for things and would indeed be a setback for Chris Reed, dropping a couple of minutes in the process. But he was still going, which of course, at this point in the event so early on, was the main thing. Tony Rooney, meanwhile, would make a couple of small navigational mistakes in the early runs, the drawback to competing by yourself in the car and having to try and remember where to go. But things were still going well despite this. 21st on the leaderboard for now. There was bad luck early on for Team Parry though. They'd be suffering with that misfire we've seen before, ending their event early. And rounding out our leaderboard at this stage will be Alan Mason, sporting some damage on the front of the car. We're not really sure if that was from the early part of the course or from a previous indiscretion. Frustration as well as we lose Ross Williams and Connor Francis. They were stopping on the course, clearly not having a good run in the car, eventually pulling over for good. So with the morning's first 2 runs complete, here it is tricky Ilfracombe. Here's how the leaderboard at the top is shaping up. Over the next couple of runs, there wasn't really any change at the top to report to you. Rob Bull and Ginny Hyatt still leading the way. All that was needed on the car was fuel. It was a nice trouble-free run with the odd kick of the tyres this afternoon. Ryan Dunn was playing things sensible. As far as the championship was concerned, it was, of course, within his sights. Bull up ahead, not registered for points, so that wasn't going to be an issue. A win was always going to be the preferred result, of course. These are racing drivers, but the long game was more important to that title fight. Mum had now stepped out of the navigator's seat for Dad Paul to take over from run 5. And things were still going well for Alex and Liam Holford. They were putting in some strong times. You wouldn't even know that he'd been away from competing for such a long while. Just over a minute back from second, but a good advantage in third place themselves. No change for James and Philippa Tennant. James doing all of the driving this weekend. The times still good, and they were 4th in the standings for now. That would give them some good hoard of points if they could hold on to it to the finish. More attrition though, this time. It was Rob Scone disappointed, retiring from 5th after 4 runs of the day, but having to pull over when the car developed an issue midway through the course. Game over after such a strong start. Dave and Lindsay Bakewell, though, were picking up the pace as the day went on. No issues to report either. Things going well for the pair, who were now finding themselves in 5th on that overall leaderboard. The Bakewells had overtaken Paddy Barker on the results as well. No change for Paddy. The movement around him didn't really change his position in 6th on the leaderboard for now. Brian and Mitchell Birch were another pair having a reasonably trouble-free run. A fuse blowing on the fan on run 5 was about the only furrowed brow, but the backup kicked in. Aside from that, things all going to plan. They end run 5 in 7th overall. Small overshoot from Toby Cox and Tim Tennant would cause the car to stall, but with a quick restart, they were back on their way again. Damage limitation at its best, ending this run in 8th place. Sadly for Alan Kirkland, his good run was over. He'd been in 9th place overall, but an issue with the car would mean an early end to the event, and that potential top 10 finish going out of the window. Ninth at this stage then was Cy Batch, moving into that top 10 overall position. But it wouldn't last. His event also coming to an end on run 5. So rounding out the top 10 now was Joshua Munn, Lauren Carpenter alongside, still leading the way in Class 6 as well with that position. So with a few more runs done and the attrition rate growing, here's how the results at the top are shaping up. A few changes, but not for our podium positions going into the final runs of the event. On to those final runs then. Frustration for Liam Hallett with 2 runs to go. There was engine issues on the car causing an early exit. For Alan Mason, it was 17th overall to end the event this weekend. Pretty pleased with that, particularly with all the problems around him. Tony Rooney makes it to the end of the event to take 16th overall. And for Alex Russell, it was 15th, dropping down slightly in the final runs of the event. Chris Reed ends the day in 14th. That good enough for second place in Class 4 as well. And it was second in Class 6 for Mark Gregory, who finishes in 13th on the overall leaderboard. Continuing the second place theme on the results, it would be second in Class 7 for Margaret and Mike Bakewell, taking 12th overall as well. No change, of course, as far as the class was concerned for the sole Class 3 runner Brandon Barnwell. Class win his, but better than that, he takes 11th place overall as well. On to what had been a pretty hard-fought top 10, and it was that 10th place finish for Paul and Tracy Johnson, who also take the Class 4 victory. For Joshua Munn and Lauren Carpenter, it was the Class 6 win. They'd held on to that all day, managing to get up as far as 9th overall. And it would be a dramatic end to the event for James and Philippa Tennant when they roll the car in the afternoon, losing a whole load of time as well, getting it back on its wheels. But they did just that and got it back on its way again, still setting a time and still getting a finish in 8th place overall, keeping them in that championship fight. But things almost out of their hands now into the final rounds of the season after that dramatic end.
James, not quite the end to the day, but it's not over yet, is it?
No, we've recovered something from the day, but yes, it's sad that that was a fairly big mistake, and although fortunately no damage done and a very soft roll, but yes, sadly that's put us back a bit in the championship, but it's still alive, so we're still in with a chance. So, but I may have just cemented our second place.
Toby Cox and Tim Tennant were aiming for a finish, and they got just that. But seeing some of the close times did tempt them to push a little more than they probably would have done ordinarily. They have a faultless run though in the car, more than happy to take a hard-fought 7th overall, and with just a few small changes to make before they return for the final rounds later in the season. But not taking any unnecessary risks, Brian and Mitchell Birch backed off a little on the final runs. They just couldn't catch the crew ahead. What they didn't account for was a push from Toby Cox from behind. Realising that, they put a push in themselves on the final run to keep hold of that position. A bit of last-minute battling to take 6th overall and that Class 7 win. And the competitor in front that they just couldn't catch will be Paddy Barker, strengthening his championship point score a little more this weekend. He doesn't manage to get past the Tennants just yet, but things were now close in that battle for second place overall in the championship. It would be a trouble-free run for Dave and Lindsay Bakewell. A good finish with some more points and, of course, some more confidence going into the next round, which they would need, as the next event was one that they had never competed at. Hopefully they can keep up the good pace though as they take a 4th place finish this weekend, heading into the final stages of this championship. After all of that drama inside the top 10, there are no changes at the top of our results. Alex and Liam Holford take a great 3rd place finish. A podium on your return is pretty good going, and a podium as a father and son combo is even better. Meanwhile, Ryan Dunn's choice to play it safe had been a good one. His closest rival, of course, having problems this time out. But that could easily be him on future rounds. So there was no chance of backing off just yet. 2nd place this weekend wasn't as sweet as victory, but in terms of the points, it was exactly that. The championship now in his hands. It was, in many ways, his to lose. But taking the win this weekend will be a delighted Rob Bull and Ginny Hyatt. They had a good, tidy run to win the event by a strong margin. But with them not scoring points, it didn't affect the championship race. It was just a nice win to add to the tally so far, and a fantastic debut together for the pair. So the 6th round of the season is complete, and that title fight is hotting up. Here's how the results shaped up at Ilfracombe.
So Rob, good result this weekend. How's it been out there?
Yeah, it was good, yeah. A bit of a struggle on the first one. I got a bit over-enthusiastic and hit a stump and had a spin and knocked an arrow over, but after that I settled in and it's been a good weekend, good course. Dust is killing it a bit by the ends of it, as you can see. But fair, the car is pretty good at anything you put at it, really. But I learnt my lesson on the first one. I just drove it steady, but drove through it sort of in first gear and was a bit cautious and tried to make the time up in the open fields rather than trying to push on too fast in the woods, really. Yeah, so it seemed to have worked.
Not first, not what we wanted, but for the championship it's ideal. So we've had a really good championship weekend this weekend. A few problems that didn't really hold us back too much, but hopefully we'll get them fixed and we've got something to look forward to now. The trees at the start are really difficult around here. You've really got to be careful around here. I thought mine end was bad, but this is really, you've really got to be careful around here. Really, like, if you jump out of a rut, you're out of a rut, you're gone. So, but the fast parts in the fields, I'm much more comfortable. So I was happy in the fields. I was always worried in those trees. Once I got out, I was happy. It was a bit of a yee-haw moment then. So back out to speed.
Alex, Liam, good day today. You've managed to get on the podium.
Yeah, managed. Still life in the old dog. Yeah, he recognised, no life left in me, but, seems I've got a bit. Maybe with a better navigator, I'd have won it.
Liam, first time in the seat. How's it been in there?
It's been alright, to be fair. Bit of a surprise. He can drive a bit, but that's it, yeah. It's been fun.
It's first time out in the car for a while. How's it coped out there?
Absolutely fine. I mean, we had a bit of an overheating issue and fitness more than anything, because I haven't driven for a long time. Tiredness started to get me towards the end, so I had to sort of back off a little bit just to make sure I didn't clatter any trees. And so yeah, a bit of a workout I think before next time. And yeah, I've done real well. First time I've raced with my boy. Special moment.